Thank you very much. Okay, so Euro, you were really so patient, waiting all the time. Or Lizzie wants to start first, okay? Because you have the mic, and then it's Euro. Yes, okay. Lizzie, okay?
To draw together some of those threads, there needs to be support for the evolution of some of these organizations that have existed in a traditional media framework. Ross and I were talking about this earlier, the need for education and for universities to create courses to educate people to do top-up skills for journalists and young people coming in to learn the new skills of mediation of the new media landscape. Things like data journalism, which will create lots of new jobs for journalists, but also techniques such as the mediation techniques, which introduce standards in non-linear interactive environments, and techniques to increase the findability of content, such as swarming, how to create a meme and to move people around. And once you've got them in a sort of swarm, then you can put quality media into that swarm. It's a new sort of version of the audience. So there are new ethics and standards emerging. But I think the most important thing that's come out of here is what's a fantastic academic called Roger Silverstone called keeping a proper distance, or having a proper distance. And that's having wide enough selection of material so you get a 360-degree view. I talked to a friend of mine the other day who works at Hewlett-Packard creating algorithms. I said to her, could there be a public service algorithm? She said, yes, you could do it. You could do it so that you could tag content so that what's pulled out using predictive analytics or whatever is a public service type of selection of content, and it could be tagged as such. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is just to make sure that public service media are supported and are able to move online or get online or to operate online. I know in Germany there are copyright issues and content has to be taken down. But the European Declaration and Recommendation, March 2012, that the European Council of Europe was passed at the Council of Europe, will really help with this.
Okay, Euro. Thank you very much. Lizzie, Euro.
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps when I took the floor at the beginning, maybe I was a little bit too on the negative side, because of course all these new technologies, they give fantastic tools for journalists, professional journalists, and everybody. The problem is that media houses, instead of using those opportunities for improving the quality, they just make do with fewer journalists, and this is one of the worrying trends. On the question of public service, public broadcasting, there's one tendency, at least in Finland right now, that private-owned media want to fence in the public broadcasting company into a certain area. I mean, they should not, according to the private media, the public broadcasting company should not be allowed to diversify into other areas using, of course, the internet and all these new technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ross, anything else you want to add?
I just wanted to, I'm glad we've had this discussion, and I'm very appreciative of the questions raised and the issues that we need to face. But I want to remind us of the incredible diversity of knowledge and viewpoints that are available now because of the internet, which were never available before. And that needs to be the baseline agreement, I think, for all of us as we address the challenges. I think about myself as a kid. You know, I was fairly precocious, and I had views on any number of issues, and my ability to speak to the world was so limited as a child. My parents, my teachers, if I were lucky enough, and I wrote a letter to the editor, and that editor found it worthy, maybe it would get published in the local newspaper. And now when we think about the ability of anyone with an internet connection today to speak to millions of voices, it's really a profound change. It's disruptive, and there are challenges, but we need to maintain an appreciation for this democratization of viewpoints that we're all able to benefit from. And I think that's incredibly important.
Thank you very much. Elvana, do you want?
Yes.
You posed so many questions. I think not all were answered, but we are going on after lunch break.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think what Ross said earlier, the experience, the reader's experience, and what Giacomo said, the information, actually, the quality of information, this is really the heart of the debate. Whether information is experience or is something else, is the basis for self-fulfillment, is the basis for self-development, is the basis for democratic discourse, for plurality of ideas and points of view. My plea is for all the policymakers to start becoming aware of the challenges, to start becoming aware of this dichotomy, and to think about these solutions, which are not going to be easy and not always are going to be regulation. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Elvana. Roberto?
I personally think that what Ross was explaining is very true. But at the same time, isn't it a bit of a mirage sometimes? Can I really reach millions of people? How many times this happened? Very few. If any regular person with a Twitter account, how many people in the world have a Twitter account or are in Facebook? And what are your connections? I'm not saying it's not true. And some people, influencers, can be very public. So I would say, yes, that's true, but at the same time, we should not be afraid because of regulation and of trying as citizens to be able, through our representatives, to set rules in the market so the markets, again, are not only chasing economic profitability, but a profitability for the citizens. Having said that, I would like to emphasize that public service media should not be seen as that bunker in the past only based on regulation and in front of or a competitor to commercial media, or I would say not only commercial media, but many other players in the market. We actually need to cooperate, and this is already happening. And across Europe, we see in many situations where public service media and commercial media are working together to bring the citizens quality entertainment, quality news, quality content. So I would say we need to live together. And I think it's better that we start to cooperate and we start to do things together, because otherwise what is going to happen is that the citizens, as you said, thanks to the capabilities of technology, are going to get tired of these fights and they will go somewhere else to get their content.
Okay, last but not least, Asim, please.
Yeah, let me mention one example how internet helps civil society fight the corruption. Hours ago, we published a video file revealing how inspector from the State Inspectorate of Traffic wants a bribe from a Turkish truck driver. We received this video and we revealed that immediately. Internet gives the chance of civil society fighting the corruption when the system is trying to keep this problem inside it, not revealing it spread out. So I want to finish mentioning that I used to work for 20 years in conventional media, in newspapers. I had to migrate in internet to keep the mission of journalism, of genuine journalism, to supply a good and professional information, to give the chance of alternative tribune, free and responsible, which is not governed by the stress of censorship and auto-censorship. And all these things I can get, and I can work in this situation thanks to the possibilities of digital media, of internet. So it's very important it's very important to have the chance working such a journalistic profession, because it's very vital and truly necessary for any democratic society.
Okay. Thank you very much. Was very good, I think, final remark. I just want to remind you, please, we have a breakout session going on, especially with the question of how is journalism working now in these days, how is it, what's the future of journalism, and so on. And you will also have a keynote talk, I think, introduction to the topic. So please also advertise for this breakout session. Come to this one. This is, of course, the best one, just after the lunch break. I may ask Thomas now also, please brief, but you're the rapporteur. What did you take out of our session?
Thank you, and thank you for trying to herd this wild kettle of very engaged people. It was really great to listen to you. So I try to be brief. What I take away is that we have seen a transformation of the media ecosystem and also of the use of media that go in different directions, and very diverging interpretations of what is good or bad about this development and what should be done about it. So we face a proliferation of information and media services, in particular online. Social media, citizen journalism, etc., have added new applications and new uses and are challenging the use and business models of traditional media actors. Notion of media has changed or has been expanded or diversified. We all agree that we have more information and communication available in quantity, but there is not really an agreement whether we have more in quality and in diversity, and whether we have more media freedom or more individual freedom. And one of the key challenges for users is the question of trust. In particular, young users seem to have lost trust in traditional media actors. They rely more on social media, on their own friends, and on platforms that offer interaction with their friends. But at the same time, also, good question would be why. That hasn't been discussed. Maybe that's a question that we could follow up with the young people in the breakout session. Why have you lost trust in traditional media actors? But there are also some risks with these new structures. One of them being a narrowing effect due to the customization of information delivery, that you get what you want and you fail to see what maybe others are concerned, but not you directly. The issue of whether these platforms are becoming gatekeepers is something that has been discussed. And then, of course, the question of more or less freedom, I will come to that. One thing that has not changed is that media is still the main tool for people to form their opinions and to build their reality, to expand their personal reality. There were two focuses of the debate. One was the discussion about diversity and quality in media journalism. The behavior of all the new actors was questioned and judged and evaluated very differently depending on the experience, on the personal experiences of the people. And then also the requests about a transformation of public service media to maybe public service journalism, and questions about regulation, protection, and also responsibilization of new media actors was discussed, and we hope that we will continue on this after that in the breakout session. And the whole question of media regulation and why and what for and why not. And then finally, and I'll end with this, is that we have heard by several speakers that there seems to be a development in some European countries, in particular in Eastern European countries, where the relationship between politics and media is changing, has been changing in the past years. It has been claimed that there are more attempts to influence and control the media by governments, and this development is worrying, and we should all have a closer look at this and look at what is going on to get a real picture and then take actions in all our institutions that we work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I thank all the panelists. I thank also all the organizers who have been prepared this, I think, very interesting panel with a lot of stuff to think about. Bon appetit and see you later. Thank you very much.
Haydi haydi. Yes.
Ама не, бъркаш ме така.
Гледаш ме
Опа,
правиш.
Какво ми прави? Това е, кое ти е? Това е 3-4 си отговарят по номерата. 3-4 си.
Ей, тест, 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 тест. Тест, 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 чек се един. Ей.
Чувам само на една слушалка. Не знам, що му казах, да е моно. Чувам на една слушалка. Какво да е? Да, 3-4 ми се вода, добре.
Ей, тест. Раз, тест, проба 6.
Това не трябва да се стрима в YouTube, нали знаеш, ще ни блокират канала. Това не трябва да стига към YouTube. Никаква музика. Никаква музика. Няма пускаш. Просто няма пускаш музика. Той ще пуска друго. Той ще пуска конференция. С звукоконференция, няма да е музика. Това е друго нещо. Това е друго нещо.
Така.
Чакай да застана на камерата.
Тест, проба 6. Тест, проба 6. Тест, проба 6. Тест. Да, даже си много силен. Намали малко гейна отгоре, може би. Тест. Обратно на минус. Тест. Добре, така. Абе, намали още малко гейна. Много сме... Много. Няма нужда от панорамите. Тест, 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 6, тест, 1, 2. Сега ще видя. Почва да правим микрофона, той има време. Чакай да го правим тук. Това.
Четири, кой ще го пробва? Дай, кажи сега.
Ей, тест, раз, тест, проба 6, 6, 1, 1, 6, тест, проба раз, мисля, че чул страхотно, невероятно, перфектно, айде.
Test, test 1, 2, 3. Cool. Test, test, test. Test 1, 2, 3. Nico, could you give me the audio out? I couldn't find the unmute button. So I unmuted this one, but
this mic.
okay, but the audio out from the computer. This one. Let me try. No. It's not better. Test 1, 2, 3. But this is working. It's fine. I'm talking about this. I need to test and to click this one. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. So listen. So all this is WebEx host. Okay. So this is muted from here. Okay. So I click here and mute. I'm muted.
Carbonara 1, Carbonara 2, Carbonara 3.
Muted from here. You see? So
Yes.
everything here working in all the room, but you mute here. So whenever
Grazie.
I want to do something, I unmute from here, it will work perfectly. Okay? One more.
Drugie. Ne.
Ok, un attimo. Passatelli al brodo. Va benissimo. No, che ho detto quello. Possiamo, allora, want to start? We're going to start. So, buongiorno everybody. So, can I catch your attention? Also, would like to encourage the last shy people who are behind to come closer if they want. We wanted to create a smaller event in order to avoid the church effect. If you've been in Italy sometimes in a church, you see the people are there, but they tend to be a bit far, no? Because they say, we want to be there, but we don't want to be too much involved. No? Now we want to avoid this. We want people to be closer, to be involved, because the scope of this panel is not just to listen some ex-cathedra intervention, but to interact with the house speakers. The subject of this panel is the copyright reform. As most of you know, copyright has been a matter of discussion in the last years in Brussels. I would say, in a provocative way, until last year it was a matter of discussion in order to avoid anything to happen, because, in fact, we know that the Commission just concluded at the end of years that there were problems, but nothing has been proposed. Now we are experiencing a new scenario in which the European Commission, the institution, have put on the table a serious engagement commitment regarding the review of the current copyright framework. At the beginning of the month, on the 6th of May, the Commission has published a big strategic plan, the Digital Single Market Communication, which, inter alia, amongst other subjects, contains a very encouraging chapter about copyright. And the intention is really to revise the current copyright directive, which has been done in 2001, so it's more than 10 years old, and also to touch all other pieces of legislation which somehow are needed in order to modernize the interim framework. But when talking about modernizing copyright, is not a monolithic subject, because there are lots of items which come with. Is about right of users, is about right of knowledge, is about the role of the ISPs, is about the possibility to develop new business models, is about enforcement, whether is to which extent is possible to use content of third parties without authorization. So how should piracy and illicit content tackled in the internet? Who is responsible for that? What are the procedures in order to attack this? And we know the current discussion in Brussels is polarized between these two poles. On one side, people who say we want to modernize copyright. On the other side, people who say, no, what is really necessary is to make the enforcement much more stronger and efficient. And here comes also the role not only of the institution, but also the lobbyists. So there are, I think, the copyright reform will be an incredible scenario, an incredible arena for lobbyists from anywhere in the world, for any kind of association. We will be confronting between them and with institutions. This said, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Amelia, who does not need particular introduction because she's in the arena since a long time. And Amelia, she was in the parliament in the last mandate, and now, amongst other stuff, she also leading a new organization named Copywrong Collective, which of course is focused on the copyright reform.
So we see. Does it work? And everyone can hear me. So I will not make my introduction very long. We're currently running a campaign website called copywrongs.eu, where you can go and find out how you can make your voice heard with members of the European Parliament if you also want to be part of the copyright reform. There's more than 100 organizations lobbying members of the European Parliament in favor of not reforming copyright in a more user-oriented direction as we speak. And the only way that we can help our members of Parliament to make balanced decisions that don't only take one side of this discussion into account is by ensuring that we're also heard. So I want to encourage everyone, if you have the opportunity, go to copywrongs.eu and figure out how you or your friends can make a real effort in the run-up for the first big steps of the copyright reform, which are now in the middle of June. Thank you.
By the way, the name Copywrong already means something. What's the genesis of this name?
Right, so in a slightly longer introduction, the name Copywrongs come from the fact that a lot of people are facing problems with copyright in their day-to-day lives. We have any number of people who've been sued out of their homes, who've had their children's laptops seized by the police when the police have been doing raids. I've talked with one person in Sweden who was sentenced to 450,000 euros in fines for sharing one film on the internet. That's a large enough fine that if he has a legal job for the rest of his life, he will never be able to form a family or have a house or own any legal property because he owes everything to the people who sued him in the court. It's one out of probably 20 cases or 30 cases in the last 5 years of people who've had their lives utterly and completely ruined by an industrial complex which is greedy, which is not making new business models, which is making it difficult to do legal licensing, and which is also acting against every time of reform process that has ever been proposed. This is a copy wrong. And it's a copy wrong when we have public libraries in Sweden, Finland, and Belgium investing in technology specifically designed to monitor clients of libraries that are trying to take part in the public information sphere and get education. And the libraries need to invest in technical solutions that keep these people locked down, controlled, and monitored because the license holders and the publishing industries don't want them to have free access to information. This is a copy wrong. The list of possible copy wrongs that can be recited from the European legislative landscape is surely longer than we have time for in this 1.5-hour panel. But some examples of copy wrongs are there. The website will list many more copy wrongs that affect authors, new businesses, private persons, and that pose real and present dangers to people in their daily activities in the European Union, which is why we need for our legislators to make a progressive change so that people can actually behave compliantly with the law when they undertake activities that are acceptable and normal and that everyone kind of agrees you should be able to do, such as borrowing books from a library, access information, use pictures, or listen to music and make a general cultural European context where everyone agrees with one another.
Okay, thanks. But talking about libraries, we have the best person placed in this area, Christina, who is representing IFLA, which is the International Association of Libraries.
Thank you. I'm Christina de Castel. I'm the Manager of Policy and Advocacy for the International Federation of Library Associations. So we represent a global voice for libraries and have more than 1,500 members around the world. One of the reasons that this kind of voice is important is because it allows us to speak on behalf of libraries and their users to policymakers directly. That means that we're the voice of libraries at places like WIPO when they're discussing copyright legislation. We have a position on the EU copyright reform, which is to solve some of the problems that Amelia has referred to. And some of those things that are important are that we need an open norm for copyright. What that means is that the limitations and exceptions around copyright need to be able to move without the past as far as the speed of technological change. So we can't have copyright exceptions and limitations that only recognize print. And we know that technology moves so quickly that with an open-ended statement of exceptions and limitations, we have a better opportunity to keep up. So that's very important. There need to be mandatory exceptions and limitations that are listed, but also the potential to change with the time. And it's because we don't have that kind of exception right now that we're in the position that we are with ebooks, where libraries don't technically have the right to lend ebooks. They have the right to lend print books, and we have that concept in European legislation, but the same doesn't exist for a digital book. It's also important to us, for libraries internationally and within the EU, that any exceptions and limitations be mandatory in the EU member states and across Europe. And in fact, we'd like the exceptions and limitations that are in the WIPO treaties to be mandatory across the world, so that the decisions of one country over another don't lead to an environment where it's hard to move content from one place to another. So having an open-ended exceptions and limitations regime and having mandatory enforcement of those limitations is important. And then finally, that the ideas of enforcement need to be carefully defined. And so those disproportionate consequences for people need to be monitored, and there needs to be something that makes sense. So that's the position of the library associations. Part of our role in IFLA is to be there for libraries and national state library associations to help them with the tools to advocate on a local level with their policymakers in their areas, so that they can understand how to communicate with those individuals.
Okay, thanks, Christina. And now I would leave the floor to Galia, who is deeply involved in the current debate on copyright reform in the current parliament.
Thanks. Can I first ask for the sound to be a bit up? I can hear the people from the next room, and that distracts me. Thanks. Okay, so first I would like to ask who from the audience is familiar with copyright at all, or with the current processes? So all of you are interested in the topic. Can I also ask the people from the back to move closer to us so we can have better communication? Please.
So you are kindly encouraged to come closer, so not be too shy.
Yes, we want to have rather debate and discussion than just us presenting.
Okay, thanks.
So there has been some of the issues addressed in the previous panel on digital single market, and a lot of people repeated geo-blocking, but geo-blocking is not the main issue. In fact, it's, of course, it's very easy to market. It's easy, understandable, but it's far not the only issue there. The issue is the freedom of expression and the freedom of the ability to access content. In this regard, currently, nobody wants to listen to the users that participated in the consultation of the European Commission. And they are gradually disregarding the results, which are showing that there are severe problems when accessing, when sharing, when wanting to create on digital platforms. There has been a lot of research executed also by European institutions, independent research centers, academics, on file sharing and what are the effects of, what are the economical dimensions of file sharing, and is that really harming the industry or not. I am happy to say that there is no one single study that says there is a negative impact. So, are you from IFLA? Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I understand. IFPI has a lot of reports on the topic, and I have read most of them. They are, I don't know how purposely, but they are misquoting a lot of the studies made. But we can get back to that earlier if you want to. Some of the issues that are related to copyright besides geo-blocking are the freedom of linking and embedding. And primarily this is important because this is how the internet is built, to function on linking, nothing else but linking. And if you put that under copyright, that means the internet is misfunctioning or is not existing anymore, or it will stop existing. The other point is DRM, whether we should track people and see what they're doing and track down their activities online. This is basically standards for browsers to implement. And that being said, it basically out of the control of the users, and they're imposed. So the right of communication freely is severely impacted by all of those issues, including education for open classes, online courses. And according to me, the most important issue is ISP's liability. Currently, the deputies in the parliament want to do everything possible, and they're being lobbied also by IFPI to make service providers responsible, to police the internet, and to punish their users. This is kind of ugly and incorrect, because this is how you make other people do the dirty job, and you can just hide your face behind it. That being said, we've been thinking, or I've been thinking with Amelia together, on what can be done by random people to push their own representatives in the parliament, national or European parliament, to do things, to follow their voice, to listen to their voice, and to listen to their interests, and not only be influenced by corporation interests and private parties' interests. The idea that we came up with was to make postcards that you can send. And if you are interested, I can just give you the cards, and you can send one and give one to your friend that can also send it. And I would like to ask for questions. Yes.
I think you would like to intervene.
If I may.
Yeah, yes. So repeat your name, please.
Should I take the mic?
Okay. Prego.
Thanks very much. My name is Patrick Charnley. I work at IFPI.
Okay.
So I just thought I would respond not necessarily to all the particular points that you've made, but maybe to make the case for adequate copyright protection. I work for an industry that has. I work for an industry that was probably the first creative industry to experience the effects of piracy. The effect of that has been to decrease the revenues of every element of the music industry enormously over the past 10, 15 years. The effect of that is not just on corporations, it's on everybody who is involved in making music. That's from the producers to the artists to the people who write the music, everybody in the whole chain. Where we come from this is that there are probably two causes fundamentally to the massively decreasing revenues in the industry and the reduced amounts that can be reinvested back in. One is piracy, and we would say, we would disagree strongly on the point that peer-to-peer file sharing has not had an impact. We would say that has had the most decimating impact, and I think you'd struggle to find a creative industry that disagreed with that view. But the other aspect that we look at is the role that certain large internet companies have had in changing the way that people consume copyright content. And I don't, just to pick up on one point that was made over here, I don't think it's fair.
I would like to focus the intervention
Yes.
of a single person that is possible then to...
So to cut to the chase. Our industry has licensed hundreds of services around the world. More music is available to people than ever before. We've licensed 43 million tracks to 400 services in the world. People can access this music, and we are doing this because this is how users want to consume. Where we face a problem is where there are large tech companies who are very much in that value chain, but who are using uncertainty in the law in order not to compensate the people who are creating the content.
Which company, just to be clear?
Well, for
which
example,
kind of company? ISPs, I don't know, which sense?
I'm talking particularly about content platforms here.
Content platforms.
They are taking value out of the chain that does not get reinvested back into the creation.
Like YouTube?
For example.
Okay.
YouTube is a licensed service, I should add, but if you look at the revenues from it, they are not commensurate with the revenues that YouTube itself is getting as a company from the use of content. And we would argue that, yes, we want users to have access to work. You know, the companies have worked incredibly hard to give access to as many people as possible. But in creating a rich cultural economy in Europe and the culture that you were talking about, you have to reinvest back into that culture. And if the legal framework isn't adequate to allow people to be remunerated for creating copyright works, then that is diminished to the detriment of whole of society.
Okay, thanks for your intervention, which appreciated will be shake the debate, of course. You would like to reply?
We have comments from the audience.
Please say your name and if you are talking for an
organization.
organization.
Name is Milan, working for the Ministry of Culture in Croatia.
Okay.
I have two brief questions for our panelists, but I need to propose two notes before it. First of all, digital single market is aimed to reduce the number of telecommunication companies, internet companies controlling the European market from, let's say, 23, 25 to 3 to 5 big companies, large enough to fight with the American and Asian competition. These are not my words. These are the words of the former Vice President of the European Commission for Digital Agenda. And with these words, she explained the aim of digital single market strategy.
You're talking about Commissioner Cruz?
Yes.
Which proposed a single telecom market, which was more about telecommunications.
No. This was on a more general level, not just about telecommunication and roaming. It was about what we are talking here, about the same strategy, which is not a new thing.
Consolidation.
Okay.
That was the idea behind, of course.
Well, the question is, do we really believe that the same strategy, which is aiming to produce like 3 to 5 companies big enough to take over the control over the content, do we really believe that the same strategy can modernize copyright? So my question is very precisely, do we really believe that modernization of copyright under this digital single market strategy is anything more than just another word for new wave of enforcement? And the second thing, Amelia, what is your position on solutions like cultural flat rate, content flat rate, and you know what I mean?
Content flat rate, like, I mean, Spotify giving you streaming for 10 euros a month. Okay. You would like to?
Well, I mean, first to address the concerns of our friends from the International Federation of Phonograms Industries, that actually it's your organization that has called organizations like my organization criminals in Swedish press, in mainstream Swedish press. It's your organization that has said people like me are at war with culture and camaraderie and access to culture in the world, and with yourself nonetheless. Like, you've actually unilaterally declared war with me, which I think is quite offensive. And now you come here and you say, we're wrong about the current state of academic research, which we're not, that you're playing an important role in access to culture, which you're also not. The agreements that you have with Spotify were leaked to American newspaper The Verge just a few weeks ago, and it shows some of your members have ghastly behaviors towards these new online innovative services that are trying to create, access to culture legally for people. And even Spotify, because of organizations and members of organizations, because of the members of organizations like the one you represent, it took years before Spotify was available in any larger amount of European member states. And still, it's actually unaffordable with these services in a large part of, say, Central and Eastern Europe, where people still have no choice other than illegal access. So for you to come here and say that you're playing an important part, that you're doing it for the sake of, cultural development, it's just very disingenuous. You're war-mongering and very offensive, and that's partially why we want to have this workshop, so that we can discuss how can people that represent somebody else, not you, also be heard in Brussels. The MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, has 60 full-time employees in Brussels. They work tirelessly, day and night, to visit permanent representations, to visit MEPs. When I was an MEP, and I've been a member of the European Parliament, there was this one time a lady comes into my office and say, "You're killing my children." And I say, I'm doing what now? Because I was just a member of the European Parliament, and sure, we all make stupid decisions every now and then, but how do we actually kill kids? And she says, well, because you want to reform copyright, so you're killing my children. And I said, well, how does the copyright reform kill your children? And she says, I'm a script writer for television. And I say, oh, really, which channel? And she says, Arte, which is tax-financed in Germany and in France. So she's not making any money from copyright licenses. I explicitly asked several times, have you ever had any money from a copyright license? She says, no, I have a steady income. I get money in my account every month from my employer. And I say, well, do you believe that a copyright reform will touch the French tax law? And she says, no, actually she also does not believe that. So chances are that she will continue to have money, and her children will continue to go to school and eat, regardless of what happens with copyright, because she's not at all dependent on the copyright framework to have any sort of income at all. She still made the accusation towards me that I was killing her children, not even knowing where she gets her income from, because somebody had directed her to my office in the European Parliament as part of a lobby scheme to make me feel uncomfortable and change my position, and making her feel uncomfortable by believing that there's some type of monster sitting in the Parliament going after her kids. And these things are real. People going into MEPs' offices and threatening them that they're trying to harm children, that kind of lobby strategy is real. That's what your industry is doing. Well, not particularly yours, but other industries.
I'm sorry, the attacks will continue, and after that you can come back at us if you want to. But the problem is not only the lobbying program that they have, it's also the propaganda in the media. There were plenty of advertising going on European televisions where they are saying that if you're file sharing, you're going to jail, and if you're going to jail, you're going to be raped in jail. So I think that's more than outrageous. And also, yes, on another note, well, related, about the starving artists. Improve the contracts with your artists if you don't want them to be starving. Currently, the artists are not getting anything from the online platforms the industry has contracts with, because there is nothing like that mentioned in the contract between the industry and the artists. And it's just outrageous how you're shifting, like you, MPAA, book publishers, music publishers, film publishers, everybody is pointing at ISP should be liable, ISP should police, should catch the criminals, file sharers, and because this is how we are going to save the music and the artists, which is not true either. And nor book writers are going to win more money if libraries are not lending their money online. Nor anybody is going to, not a single singer is going to get more money if somebody goes to jail. There has been law cases which the industry wins, and none of the money accumulated by those court cases have been distributed among the artists. And this is happening in the name of the artist, which is just not true.
Okay. I think you are getting a flavor of, I mean, what is the level of the debate on the interests which are involved. If this was the level of the last 5 years, you can imagine that in the next 5 years, when we will really come closer to the content of this reform, I think the fight will be very, very hard. So if you want a quiet life, stay distant from the copyright reform.
Thank you. I just want to pick up on one point, which is to do with artist remuneration from digital services. I'm aware of the contract that you're talking about. Is this on? Yeah. I'm aware of the contract that you're talking about. Artists are remunerated through their contracts directly with record labels. We have done some extensive research with our member record labels to understand what the effect is of digital services on artists. That research has shown that over the past 5 years, income for this is looking at local artists in 12 of the largest music territories. What is their, how has their income been affected over the past 5 years? What we have found is that their income has increased where it has as a proportion of the pie. So the pie, as I've said, is going down. The whole amount of revenue for the industry is going down. The share for the artists as a proportion of that is going up in those countries. And where it's going up most is in Sweden, which is where digital services are taking off most. I only mention this because I think it's fair just to be able to respond to those points. And it's for those reasons that we say that actually the enormous program of licensing is paying money back to everybody in the chain of creation. I'm going to hand back to you, but may I suggest that we get onto the kind of particular legal topics that are being raised as opposed to necessarily a conversation about
But I mean, I think I'm happy that in a way there was a confrontation of ideas about, for example, remuneration of authors is a big topic, and my understanding is that there is no clear understanding why authors complain and what are the reasons of the situation. Sometimes the people say this piracy, people say are the contracts made by the industries and platform which takes everything. I mean, we are here to understand. Okay. I see some people wanted to intervene, but Christina just wanted to say something from her experience.
Yeah, so just to come back to the copyright legislation itself and to speak to the idea of the open-ended exception. So we have concepts in international treaties in the Berne Convention of a 3-step test for when an exception or a limitation can be put into place. And that is that it's a special situation, that it doesn't prejudice the interests of the author, that it prevents exploitation of their rights. And so that these concepts have worked in print for some time, that creativity has been cultivated with those concepts in the law. And so what we're seeking in this copyright reform is to maintain those concepts in a digital environment so that we can have exceptions and limitations, for example, for libraries or for personal research that allow people to use, to copy, and to share information where they would have been able to in print. And what we've lost in the course of having legislation that does not permit this in a digital environment is the ability to do things that we could do before. And so it's important that in addressing this copyright reform that we actually come back to those fundamentals of preserving the rights of the creator of the content and their right to remuneration, while also allowing for that personal research and for each individual to have opportunities to use information that other people have created. And I think that we'd find that many authors, many creators are enthusiastic about having their work used as long as their own rights to compensation are not lost.
Thanks, Christina. So I would like now to enlarge the discussion to some people on the floor. Please remember to say your name and your organization.
Thank you. My name is Karine Four. I work for IEEE.
For?
IEEE.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers.
Thanks.
And a big part of our activities are related to publications and online publications. So I would like to have a specification about the new proposal and the new modernization about the new law on copyright, and also to draw the attention that in case you would like it to have it, when it's for library, for us it's not an issue because you buy our publication and you can dispense it whether it's online or on hardware. So it's not an issue. But for instance, a big part is online libraries, and that's a large part of our revenues. And related, so the documents, the scientific journals or papers, can be addressed on our site on two ways. Either the author decided to have it on public access, and then he has to pay a part of it beforehand in order to maintain the work that we are doing, like providing grants and doing humanitarian activities, but also part of it is subsidies because we are non-for-profit organizations. Either the person who wants to consult the paper pay for it, which is completely normal.
Okay.
But the point of it is you cannot really have it online just for your own research without paying to view it, because it will destroy our business model and it may bias the scientific research in a way that poor author who cannot pay the money beforehand in order to have it open access may have to find a co-author of their papers, which is quite important in scientific research to be an author or not, and have just for the money, because they will be able to pay, and someone who doesn't do anything but provide money will be called for the very scientific article, and that's not unacceptable.
I think nobody intends to challenge the copyright of anyone making researches. I think it's not this. The reform is not about this. Who was? You were first.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, I work for the Irish Department of Communications. I have a very simple Department of Communications. I'm not a copyright specialist. I have a very simple question. Applies both to the panel and to the gentleman from the IFPI. What three things would you like to see in the copyright reform? Three practical measures would you like to see in the reform package on copyright? There'll be differences, I understand, but this is clearly going to be the long lead item in the DSM proposal. This is going to be the big one to try and get over the line. I'm very interested to hear just exactly where you converge and where you diverge and what should happen practically.
Okay. Well, let's say we continue the questions and then we go back to our panel to reply to this. There was somebody from here asking for. Okay. Prego.
Matei Vasile from Asociația pentru Tehnologie și Internet, a digital rights organization. First, I would like to reply to the message from IEEE. The problem is that society in its entirety doesn't owe you a business model. Sorry if the creation of the internet disrupted your business model, but find a new business model. And that's it on that front. And for the IFPI, sorry, but you're just a middleman. I mean, you're claiming to represent the starving artist, but no, the starving artist wouldn't be starving if it weren't for you. The artist could nowadays go straight to the client without no intermediaries whatsoever, and everybody would be much happier and much richer, both the clients and the artists.
Grazie. Grazie for your intervention. There. Moment, it was Mr.
Thank you. John Carr from the European NGO Alliance for Child Safety Online. So, point number one, under no circumstances can it be right or acceptable for a family with children to have their internet access cut off or deprived from the home because a child has been involved or anybody in the household has been involved in particular types of activity, be they legal or illegal. Because in effect, what that means is that you are depriving the possibility of the children in that household to carry on with their schoolwork, to carry on with their to carry on with their education in a proper way. So I understand the issues that are being raised by the copyright industry very well, but it cannot be right that families and households can be deprived of internet access for that reason. But I just wanted to make one other quick point as well, and that's about piracy websites. I speak to parents all the time about stuff to do with the internet and their kids. When I've mentioned, or when they've mentioned the issue of piracy websites and the Tor network and things like this, a lot of parents think that this is a sign that their children are techno wizards and geniuses who've cracked everything that's important about the modern world and the modern internet, and they're going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or they're going to be the next Bill Gates. They have no idea about the kind of environments their children are going into when they go to some of these piracy websites. And I could give you many, many examples of, for example, one site that was simply providing free access to Brave, you know, the Disney movie about the young Scottish princess, and surrounded by adverts for prostitution and fake drugs and things of this kind. So it's completely scandalous. And again, whatever it takes, much more action needs to be taken to close those places down and make sure at the very least that parents understand what actually is going on if their kids are visiting piracy websites.
Okay. Moment, there was the lady was first. One moment, this. Madame.
My question is not a follow-up to this, so if yours is, maybe you want to go first.
Say
just
your name,
a very
just
briefly.
who you
My
are.
name is Anya Gingo. I work as a lawyer for the Center for Media Law in Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. So my question is rather of a technical nature. I'm just wondering, the EU reform of 2015, does it tackle the issue of non-EU countries? And what is happening on the relation if we have non-EU subject toward the EU object and vice versa? So who has the jurisdiction to deal with these issues?
Not clear, sorry.
If I'm not clear, I can repeat.
Can you repeat? I
So
didn't
just the issue of jurisdiction and just the relations between the non-EU countries and EU countries under the EU reform.
Okay, thanks. So now we ask, we have a final intervention for the time being, and then we go back to the panel.
I have two question clarification as a user. So when I was buying books or movie, or not movie,
Who you are? Please?
Valentina Pellicer from Bosnia and Herzegovina, activist and parent, and that's my next.
And parent. Okay.
Yes, parent. So when I was buying a book on paper, I was buying it for the content, and then I could share. Now, why I cannot share my digital copy? It's completely false and unproved that if I put my copy online, the whole world, it's the same with migrants. People say we open the borders and all migrants will leave and will go to live in the richest country. It's completely false and unproved. Second, I find very exploitative. So myself, on Facebook, Google, whatever, on this social network, I share and make all this content that someone had paid and lay out. This is what copyright and publisher do. They just lay out the content of someone else. I share, I added value, but I can be punishable for file sharing, for having put something and somewhere else. So all the burden on me or the poor ISP. Regarding parent, I am a parent, and I don't need to be patronized by someone on behalf of myself. I'm a parent. My children are able to think. I can talk with my children, and I really cannot accept that someone is going around in each and every panel talking on behalf of all the parents of the world. This is completely unfair and incorrect.
Okay. We have, very quickly, but very quickly.
Follow up what Mr. Carr said. So I agree with you that a lot of piracy sites use all kinds of, let's say, tasteless material. But that is a consequence of the actions of the copyright industries, because before this was the case, piracy sites were displaying, let's say, non-pornographic ads, because they could do that. The copyright industries came in and basically lobbied to make it illegal or in any way hamper the advertisers from doing any kind of business with sites accused of copyright infringement. And after that happened, they didn't have any other means of essentially staying alive and not shutting down. So they...
Okay, grazie. So there were various cases which I would say, if trying to summarize, they reflect in part an issue of liability. Who is liable for wrong things happening in the internet, or what should be the remedies for that? So the families, the users, the ISPs, the platform. And then there are also cases regarding who should do, what should we change in order to create more business, more growth. So the question of platform, the question of how to fair remunerate the authors and so on. That's the sense I get from the audience. This said, our Irish friend made a very simple case which probably deserved to be taken by the panel. So since we are talking about the copyright reform, which is still an idea, we don't have a proposal on the desk. It's an idea, there are some, anything may happen. What will be, in your point of view, the 3 best things which should be part of a proper reform?
So I mentioned these 3 things at the beginning from the library's perspective, which were that we have harmonization and mandatory exceptions and limitations. So we want across the EU member states that the exceptions and limitations be mandatory, that they follow an open-ended norm, meaning that as technology changes, we don't then have to change legislation in order to keep up, and that the enforcement be specific and be reasonable. So to look at those 3 things. We've had 2 other questions that haven't been addressed, so really quickly I'll address those. One was, why can't I share like I can with a print book? The reason that you can't share like with a print book is because digital content is purchased under license. So you are not in fact buying the property. You are licensing the use of the item from the person who sells it to you. And that means in our current copyright regime that you only buy the rights that the copyright holder has granted to you. And in the case of most digital books, this does not include the right to share the content. So this is why we need a copyright regime that cannot be superseded by a contract. And we have this in some of the EU member states, but only a few. So this is also an important characteristic that we would seek on behalf of libraries in the copyright reform, is that contracts cannot override the rights that we have in copyright legislation. Finally, the question, does it tackle non-EU countries? My understanding is that it does not tackle non-EU countries. For libraries, we're addressing that through the World Intellectual Property Organization and the Standing Committee on Copyright. So those meetings happen on a regular basis. The next one's coming up at the end of this month, and that is where we address these same concepts, but on an international level, rather than for the EU member states.
Grazie, Christine. Amelia?
Well, I mean, on the 3 elements of the reform, I would be perfectly happy if anyone at all made any kind of acknowledgement of the 7,000 people who contributed to the European copyright consultation that was held in 2013-2014. I don't see the contents of what people actually told the Commission in that consultation reflected anywhere in public European Commission statements. I don't see it really reflected in what the European Parliament says. I haven't seen it reflected in Council statements. And so I know that users addressed considerably more than 3 different topics in that consultation, but just having somebody acknowledge that people were trying to express themselves in the formal procedure that was decided by the Commission as a way of interacting with them on policy affairs, and just saying, yes, the citizens are there, we're listening to them, we're going to be following their recommendations for policy. And so going back to one of the questions that was raised by a Croatian friend in the audience earlier, can copyright be modernized without just having more enforcement? I'm not very optimistic at this time. I mean, this is an extremely lobby-driven issue with a lot of very heavy contention. There's nobody who has the money or capacity to be as well represented in the capitals of Europe and in the European Parliament and at the Commission as do the already established media lobbies. Everyone who has any form of divergent opinion is simply at a huge disadvantage, which is why we had been hoping that this session could bring some tools like sending postcards or calling your MEPs or getting input for what you actually request of these people to ensure that we can have at least a modicum of hope for any other type of issue being raised than more enforcement, which is where the discussion is now stuck, I think, politically.
Well, Amelia addressed my main wish, actually, for the European legislators to start listening not only the lobbyists that are meeting them on the spot, but also people that answer their own questions online. I want to answer a question that I'm not sure what was it exactly from the scientific publisher, right? I am actually very curious about what kind of intellectual property you're claiming there, because the research is made by public funds. It's not you paying for the work. And another thing is that the scientific researchers do not make money out of copyright. You're providing a platform, that's a service, that's not copyright. If somebody offers a platform for online shop, they do not get copyright money from the actions over there, right? And I know for a fact, because I'm involved in the current debates on EU level on copyright reform, and the thing is that currently scientific researchers are paying to upload their own reports to you, and afterwards they are paying to download them.
Okay.
And this is ridiculous. So when you say yes, that is the big problem, that you're claiming copyrights on something you're actually not doing. You are a middleman, as somebody said here. And the scientific researchers do not make a profit out of copyright. That's what I wanted to say. And also on the non-EU countries, currently the debate is tackling only the content of the reform itself. There are reports on enforcement, but they are mainly concentrated on how it should go internally on the member state level.
May also, seems to be an important part of this debate, because you represent a part. Also, from your point of view, what would you see as the three main points of a copyright reform?
Thank you. Just as a brief introduction to what we see as being important, somebody was saying that record companies are essentially middlemen, and that the artists could go directly to users, and I suppose the same logic, if that was correct, would apply to book publishers, any type of producer of content who inputs at that stage. The reality is actually quite different. In fact, the vast majority of unsigned artists do want to be with record labels, and the reason for that is that the investment in an artist is enormous. For a major company to launch a new artist costs between $500,000 and $2 million, and only roughly 1 or 2 out of 10 of those acts will ever succeed. So there's an enormous investment at that stage. I think actually the role of producers is very important. It's secular. The money that comes in is invested back. So the question, what would we like to see? I'll really just focus on one thing that concerns us the most, and that is of a concern that certain internet platforms, as I have raised before, are having a very important role in distribution, and have built very big businesses on the back of copyright content, but are not necessarily passing back that value in the way that enables further investment. And what we would like to see is a redressing of that balance to ensure that the people who are creating copyright content are properly remunerated for it.
So radio.
I'm sorry?
So remuneration from the radio platform?
No, broadcasters are already dealt with under a separate regime. I'm talking more about online content distributors who make available on-demand works. And I wonder if I could just make another point to pick up on the point that you made about,
Sorry to understand, you're talking about platform where content is posted by third parties?
Yes.
Or because other, like Spotify and so on, they negotiate the rights, so they,
yes,
it's a negotiation.
So Spotify is a very close partner of the record labels. I'm not sure where you've got your information from in
by
that
the way,
respect.
such platform normally...
So Spotify sources the copyright content from the copyright owners in accordance with agreements directly between them. Whereas a user-generated content platform, for example, sources the content from the population as a whole. And very often that content is simply a reproduction of a copyright work. And what we want to see is that the services who benefit enormously from that, who draw in users because that premium music content is there, and therefore generate enormous advertising revenues from that music content, are fairly remunerating the people who created it. That's what we would be very eager to see.
Okay, thanks. There were some other people wanted to intervene. You asked.
Sure.
Yes.
Thomas Levine, Dada artist with CSV Sound System. Most of my work relates to sharing of information on the internet.
You are an artist.
Dada.
I know the art.
Yeah, like it's an old art movement that Anyway, so I've lost track of what we were supposed to talk about right now. I'm getting, most of what I'm hearing is basically the panelists expressing their thoughts on copyright. Was there something that everyone else is supposed to chime in on, or what am I supposed to be saying?
I don't know. You wanted to make a case?
No, that's what I wanted to. I wasn't sure what we were supposed to, because usually when comments from the audience come back, it winds up being a discussion about the one of the panelists' views. So I'm wondering if there was something else that we were supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Does my confusion make sense? Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Okay, it's okay.
So the topic of the discussion today was how can more citizens' voices be heard in the copyright debate? And I think we have a few choices about how that can happen. So what we need to hear from you is, what are your opinions on how copyright challenges you or doesn't work for you now that we could be expressing as we work on this issue, but also to invite your participation in this debate. And on the part of libraries, what I would say is to invite you to contact libraries and try to have the library be a place for the conversation to happen with policymakers. So to invite you to try to make those conversations happen at a local level so that an individual policymaker in your area can hear your opinion of how copyright is affecting you. Now that's obviously tough if you're not sure exactly what it is about copyright that affects you. But your ability to use content would be an example. So I think we'd be asking you, what kinds of support are you looking for as individuals in order to have your voice heard, because we want that to be happening. And so that's why my colleagues here have talked about the postcards.
Okay. So there was a quick reply from the scientific research lady, because Gala said that you're not making money really with copyright. So, but a short reply.
Yeah, I think I have to make a bit of a reply. First of all, we are we are publishing with a peer review, which is the work, and 170 journals and magazines, also on hard copies. Regarding the comment of the gentleman, yes, in fact, we have to change business model, and I'm sure that you will find a good job if there was no Wi-Fi or Ethernet to make work the internet. That may be some problem. The money and the offer, they have the choice. They have the choice. They can either pay to have it free access when it is public funding and not private funding, because research also private funding. There's not only public money. They have the choice. And otherwise, it is like if you were buying a magazine, the same way. Second of all, I was the only one. And for the, I would like to say that maybe the author don't get any money out of it. But the reputation and the gain they got from being cited as an author in our magazine worth a lot of money for their careers, because it's very high rated, and as you know, academics are also gaining money and getting credibility from where they are cited and referenced.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, by the way, I can say also that they can put their article that they are authored on their blogs and website without paying anything.
Okay. Say your name, please.
I'm Jordan. I'm a web developer. I used to work for a scientific publishing company, so I would tell you it's not the scientific publisher that does the peer review, it's other scientists in their free time, which is paid by taxes. But I wanted to ask you something very important. You said when you're buying an ebook, you're not actually buying it. So maybe can we force the sellers to not say the word buy, use another word, maybe lease or something else, to make it clear that you're not actually buying the book, so you don't have the same rights that you have with the... Even better.
Okay. You want to say?
Well, yeah, so if, oh, sorry, I forgot your name. If Christine's comment about what the goal of the session was is correct, I think we're supposed to be talking about how we would like convey our ideas about copyright rather than conveying right now what our ideas are. And if that is the case, I would suggest that we do that rather than talking about what we think about copyright, talk about how we would talk about what we think about copyright, or something like that.
Okay.
So I think the problem is that in the room we have some individuals for whom it's very easy, or at least relatively easy, to get access to the places where they need to go to express their opinions. So for instance, some of our friends here represent very big companies who already have their demands inserted into policy documents at the European level and in most member states. Whereas other parts of the audience, like the gentleman who just proposed that you should be able to buy digital content, has much poorer access to legislators. So I agree that the discussion is a bit derailed from our intention. But ultimately, the only thing that you can do to be heard in a legislative concept is try to speak even louder, and especially in larger numbers than whoever is speaking there presently. You know, there's...
If you're so sure of that, and I'm just speaking louder than you because you just mentioned that, well, why are we having this session?
Oh, okay. I mean, I think the discussion is shifting a bit from the merit of the copyright reform to the rules of the game, you know? Who will be really able to influence? Because there are some part of the stakeholders, they are really professionals for historical reason. They have budget, and they are able to be very present. There are part of the stakeholders which are maybe a bit less, they pay less attention because maybe this is not their core business, or others who are really interested but they don't have budget, they don't have political influence, but they want to be in the part of the discussion. But let's say that the internet has changed a bit the rules of the games, because now if you want to make your voice to be really visible and to have relevance, of course it's important to be in Brussels, it's important to be in the capital, but you can also organize big movement of opinions through the platform, to the net. And this is also taken into consideration by the politicians. If you remember, in 2009, the parliament rejected the agreement about the telecom framework because one of the parliamentarians said that we have to insert the right of right to the internet access. And that was something which was not agreed with stakeholders, with member states and government. And because of this sudden initiative, all the procedure had to be delayed. So, I mean, there is a problem rule of the game, but I wouldn't be so much pessimist about who are really able to influence or not, because the internet, we are talking about the internet here, is been also changing the way the people are able to influence the powers, to get in contact with the decision makers. You agree with this or not?
I want to add to your statement that currently copyright is not touching only upon creative industries. And in this regard, we talk about coming back to the point on buying the licensing for the book or the book itself. Today is the book, tomorrow is the car, because the cars are, Google is launching new type of car. Legislators are trying to deal with that. And a couple of days ago, General Motors said, you don't own your car, you only bought temporary the licensing for it. So
for the car.
Yes, you also have a different kind of ways health issues have been resolved already. Hearing aids are transforming, for example, sound into the ear of the person with hearing disabilities, and this can be a copyright infringement with the current state of the copyright. Basically, copyright is not only touching upon creative industries and access to creative content. Also, just give me a second. Also, as mentioned, the guy from IFPI talked about how much musicians want to have contract with labels. They don't want to, but they are forced to, because they cannot get neither market place on their market, nor means of getting their work heard or seen. And since the entertaining industry is is monopolizing the entire, from production to distribution, this is where artists are forced to go. It's not because they want to, really. Nobody wants to give away all their rights to somebody else. So artists don't want to have contracts with you if those are the conditions. No artist wants to have copyright protection after he's dead 70 years. It's the publishers who wants to do that. And you can, it's a very funny discussion. On one hand, you have people saying, we want to listen to those artists, we want to explore more and new. And artists saying, we are struggling finding a way to promote ourselves. Because on iTunes, you have primarily big, it's only 3, in fact, labels. And only 3 movie companies that are owning all the channels. And though their artists, their products are promoted. Independent artists don't really have a place on the platforms. So basically, they are not eager to have contracts with you. They are just forced to.
Okay, so there is a consolidation in the studios in the studios market. There's a consolidation of platform. So, and the authors are the weak part in this market. The lady wanted to intervene on this point.
Okay, I think the more I listen, the more I think the civic disobedience is only what we have. Because, I see a very preventive copyright. Whatever is on Instagram belongs to Instagram. They can do whatever they want. Whatever is on Facebook, they can do whatever they want. They can change, make, remix. I can't. But if I share something on this, some copyright tradition holder will come to say to me, you own me, and they can find me as much as they want. On the other hand, there are very nice discussions going, like the TTIP, where maybe some nice copyright firm can decide to have their own little judge discussing and making other stuff. So I think that for humans, ordinary users, customers, and what we are, citizens, yes, that everyone put money in our pocket in a way or other, taxes and things, we will have only civil disobedience. Because if we have public money, those publications are close to me. There are plenty of super research that I cannot access. They have been paid by European money. European Union money are taxpayer money, but those content is closed. So at the end, piracy, it's a civic disobedience. I have no problem in paying something that I find worthy, but I really feel pissed off and offended when someone decides that I have to pay 20, 30, 50 because they want to have another profit, and they just give me a copy I cannot share. And at the end, I think that I will do civic disobedience, and I hope that the people will do, the majority of the people, because it's our money, it's our lives, it's our content.
Grazie. There was somebody wanted to intervene from here. You too? No, you don't. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
I'm Tapani Tarvainen from Finland, Electronic Frontier Finland specifically, and I want to bring up one point that's been rather missed here, that they're all talking about money. That's not so important here as far as I'm concerned. It's secondary to human rights in particular, and as a specific case, privacy. If I read a book, I want to buy a book and read it, and nobody should know which book I'm reading. This becomes a problem in digital world, because quite a number of these schemes that work with digital content of any kind require that the content, the rights holders know who is doing what at any given time. It's not quite essential, I hope not, but it tends to be. And I would like legislation to make sure that privacy endangering mechanisms should not be used to protect copyright. And if it really can't be helped, I must say that I don't really think that the entire entertainment industry is worth losing our privacy. Sorry.
Okay, very quickly, because then we will
just very briefly. I don't think it is actually the copyright creators who get that data. It's the intermediaries who are. Yeah.
Yes. No. But I mean the privacy data protection is another dossier. Okay, but it's correct what you say.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marco, coming from Out of the Box International. But I'm going to speak like a citizen, because it's about citizens and so on. And just in 2 minutes, I think we didn't mention so much. I want to say something about the porno movies. When I was 8 years old, my father and mother, they went to work in a job, But my father has a VHS cassette with the porno movies, When they go to work, I find out where was the cassette. So I start watching, of course, and it was very good educational process, So maybe reply also to parents and so on, that maybe they should also hide their newest movies in the house so the kids can find it and educate themselves. After many years, I sit with my father and I said to him, thank you for hiding it, all these things over there. So I learned a lot from this, and we had a lot of fun. So is this cassette that he recorded from TV, and then that I share with him, is this something that goes and addressed by copyright reform today? Because obviously we have, as a humans, quite big need to share things. It's not only to, how you call it, not buy it, but borrowed by this company. So how the reform address our basic need to share?
Who wants to reply? Prego.
So of course libraries arose because humans love to share, and it's important for people to share. And this is why, in fact, the copyright reform that's necessary is to ensure that our rights under copyright are not superseded by the licenses. So we have the right to share when we purchase an object, and we don't have the right to share right now when we license a digital object. So we need that protection that a license cannot override the rights that we have gained in dealing with physical objects. And it's that John Deere tractor company put software on their tractor that runs it in the United States, and it was quite recently in the news that the farmer couldn't fix his own tractor. He was violating copyright and was fined for trying to fix his tractor because it was a license for the software and not, in fact, a purchase of the tractor. So this is happening more and more. By ensuring that this particular exception gets into our copyright law and that it is universal, that it applies in all countries, and that it is mandatory, then we ensure that we save that right to share that has become such an important part of our civilization.
Right to share, that is something that is on the base of platform, no? Okay, you would like to intervene? You've been talking about very rapidly.
I would like to add something to what she said about sharing, borrowing, lending. It's not just a legal issue; it's also a technical issue, because now that I'm a gamer, I don't have time to play anymore, but I still basically buy them. I have a bit of a collector streak, and nowadays, which means in the last something like 7 to 8 years, more and more games have online DRM. I can't lend my games to a friend, a colleague, whatever, because I could just give them a disc which is useless. It's basically what you not even buy. License is a key code.
Yes,
that's it. So when talking about the ability to legally share, if you just put it in writing in legal terms, but don't address this technical issues, it won't be enough. These technical issues, I mean, legally in some places you would be entitled to lend your games or whatever, but you can't. You physically can't.
Okay. So there was the lady there who asked also to intervene. Prego.
Hi, yes, my name is Desiree Milosevic. I'm part of the Open Rights Group in the UK Advisory Board, and the Open Rights Group, or org, they advocate the need for the copyright reform, especially in Britain. So I tend to work, a few years ago back, I worked on a BBC project together with British Library and British Film Institute, trying to release some of the taxpayers' money paid public works. And it actually appeared that we need more lawyers to clear out these licenses of this work that's been paid than we would spend money on copyright reform. So the issue that the copyright reform is so needed, badly needed for Europe, in order to implement only some of the national programs, and that would facilitate further research, help out scientists, help out documentary filmmakers, that would really inspire a lot of creativity. And the way we use an internet became just obvious. We need a reform, and I think in these parts of Europe where we have digital divide, like Southeastern Europe, these issues are not highly on our agenda, but it will become high, so I'm glad we're having this conversation. And I do think we need to support all the exemptions we can for the copyright reform, for the benefits of private use, for better accessibility of work. If we didn't allow Romans to copy Greek statues, would we have culture? So we are now forbidding the new life and creativity of internet users to engage with everything the society has made. So the reform is definitely needed, and the internet brought changes, and this reform has to reflect these changes. There shouldn't be a copyright for a piece of art that will last 90 years, and the industry that has created this multiple regions of releasing materials at a different time in different regions has somehow inspired the piracy for people to get to some of the interesting topics and programs. And so all of that should be addressed in the copyright reform. That's mine.
Okay, thanks. We are going closer to the end of this session because the time is running. I think it was a very important time because we had the possibility to listen from, especially from the citizen point of view, what is needed. Citizens are not pirates, so citizens were really saying, I would like to learn, I would like to share, I would like to make something creative for business purposes or not. We listened to the views also of the industry, of the content industry, saying we want to protect our right, we want to have a possibility to have a business model working. We have to invest, and we have to our investments to be recovered. I would like to leave to our panel the final statement of what you would like to say at the end of this session.
So I just want to ask you to be active, because it's not about just having a copyright reform, it's about having the right copyright reform, because things can go bad or can go good. And the consultation that we mentioned earlier showed that what is the direction that the majority of people want to see. Just be more active on insisting your voice to be heard. I again will mention our cards that you may send to your deputies that are heavily lobbied by, of course, normally people with different interests, but make sure your point is also heard.
I second that.
And along with the postcards and participating on the internet, it really does make a difference to reach out to your local policymakers in person and to try to contact them. And so do what you can to make contacts on a local level and share your perspectives. And if that's not possible for you, to talk with your library about why it matters to you. And on our part, we'll do our best to help support your libraries in speaking on your behalf where that's necessary. So do get involved and learn more about copyright and how licenses are affecting you, because it is really changing the way that the world operates for sharing information.
Okay, so I really thanks our distinguished speakers. I really thanks the patience of our audience. Our excuse for some part of the discussion became a bit, I would say, too angry, because but this is really the sense we get of the discussion. We are really talking about things which are important, which are not boring. And so if you want to have a little fun in the future, kept involved in the copyright reform debate in Brussels or from anywhere you are, because you can be involved from any location if you want. Thanks, everybody. Okay. I think we go. Amelia, we make the speaker selfie.
The speaker selfie?
Yes.
Sorry, I was hoping that I'll be able to.
Gala.
Oh, Gala.
Gala. Gala, we make the picture.
I'll see if I can persuade them.
I heard actually that in most of the parliaments were
Cristina?
Picture?
Allora.
Yes.
Amelia.
Although, was that actually the topic?
Do you want to have a picture?